accidents, wherever that is, what is that?
Debris?
Debris.
Yeah.
Debris, and then the gender K. This is the one, right? Very good.
Debris, gender critique. Sorry, I'm not listening.
Alright, very good.
Scratch the 2 NC accident, the individual can see from the 2 AC that accidents can happen in cause things and safeguards and it will be fail go to the gender K masculine IR makes all their impacts and the abstinence of international politics at the level of the state feminizing and subordinizing any other politics. The focus on obscures micropower relations that legitimatizing and creating masculine dominance to blame the harms of the 1 AC. We have 2 conceded impacts. First is the unintended outcome of past political events show prosperity for situations to escalate selling weapons to the Taliban to fight the Soviets made sense and a realist paradigm but ignored the importance of these non-state actions had in changing the state actions on the ground occupation need to sustain U.S. supremacy on police and sexual violence that motivates many insurgent activities. Second is the error replication argument conceded in the 2 AC masculine is framing of politics shape what outcomes being spent based on the traits being trapped to other actors. In this case, we have these traits are rationality, jealousy, and the other human inequalities all isolated in their hanging evidence. That leads us to expect the state needs controlling the Bush administration threatened towards our end to prosecute the war on terror led to its building insurgency era, which only made the problem worse. Now the case turns to the case first is descriptions of peace merely as the absence of prevent solutions to larger security threats and recreates those problems. The concept of female security challenges and overcomes the institutionalized IR that 709 feminine security studies offer gross foundationalism and violence perpetuate the paradigm that seeks to redress and accept the core sense of feminine security, social of the human configuration, masculinity, femininity, gender consent for framework other beds. The IR encouraged to envision different policies we take seriously allows women their understanding of security as well as on the ground workers to be able to produce more reliable analysis of security labeling. The periods of war we can have from violence and inform our social behavior work that is social behavior now. Second is that grim predictions, scenario planning are hyped up by defense analysts to justify constant global military events recreating the problem that's car and 10 new military wars different from the predecessor grim perspective security temporary military futures development extremely pessimistic in the description of security environment. The text person new expectation the result is a new willingness of U.S. national security something to consider further strategic toxic tendency which has generated scenarios one where geopolitics moving the struggle by less uncertainty and stability and reach on the evidence for its international aims making economic power decline and hegemony military future paint a very bleak future with man constant military presence to hold it together the military government tends to perceive itself as civilization increasing the chaos towards the future dark vision justify the limitless military interventions techno warfare and sure balance over procedures. They say framework our interpretation is you can leverage the impacts of the but we get to critique the methodology behind this solves their outsourcing ground argument preserves negative flexibility outweighs any residual fairness and because their core generic need is good way for biases against crashes counterpoint balance inside bias using the direction of debate we access better education that's part of the method based traditions possibility reform method organized the apparatus determines account and evidence bias verification feminists cannot be ignored the method of basic the structure of the same method they made regain the power structures return their topic arguments because examining the world gender and space policy reveals how conclusions are drawn. Now you can't separate framing policy from the policy implications that Shaw creates and 7 expressing policy ideas make the begin to the mental structures of human beings to understand reality. Research the brain has shown most of what the brain does is level of consciousness we get to the constant not obviously structures operate through the words we use in discourse and politics successful argument depends upon some of articulated more frameworks they do often more work that there now go. Now they say permutation still only stay conceded. Link to the characters. I shouldn't have to do any more work here in the 1 and R because they have not questioned it. The permutation is active, imposing the masculine order and to reason the world which justifies Plankton's feminist theory to continue with masculinity. You should reject the permutation because vague as possible to generate offense. Permutation presumption goes negative because there is no risk of option for the affirmative even through blatantly intrinsic or severance. No one votes on multiple programs today, then that's bad. Now there's no chance that the permutation solve first the static depictions of the world mean neither the aft or the permutation can solve it. It's a flawed epistemic basis as Peterson and Japan all social life into the economy, masculine, feminist order, septic identity, all concepts through structure, thought the practice structure of gender options, gender structural basic feature of how in order social life and taking gender seriously well before the important limiting of project and minimum. And second is the 1 AC masculinity has already been constructed. It makes it impossible to break it down by simply adding women in the 2 AC this Peterson and by adding women to the existing period of deeper questions because that previous about masculine and expected perspective femininity not simply added to construction to a constituted masculine. Either woman cannot add that there's a likelihood of becoming construction themselves transforming solution not accident required or analytic constituency of paradigms. They say, utility critique turns this argument. The 1 AC impact is clearly premised on a utilitarian calculus. Women's security, maximize life stage. Also, women are considered as inputs in their framing of the torpid and 88 subjective women is the only remaining source of legal slavery. Every life stage is the busy for masters made. And in fact, all more attractive most points that a women need to grab worse tall slavery. They say floating pigs were not a floating pig. They say realism is inevitable. Patriarchy will inevitably result in extinction if it's inevitable. The only choice is to vote negative here in the language. Inevitability maintains the status quo and justifies exploitation, and accident is a choice. They have to be considered complicit in supporting patriarchy means their language. Inevitability is only a way, and a realism not inevitable, including gender as a category, solves the deal an alliance in a way of scholarship sought to deal with. Masculinity comes to identify this with self-masculine bias, with the prevalence of positive methodology assumptions. Mainstream IR requests to drive their own legitimate positive underpinnings creates found many attempts to expose the character of subjective man, market man. They say that security is key to VTL. This is not a security key, nor do we preclude security. We simply interrogate the gender nature of IR. We also solve the value of life comes by. Explains above. They say feminists can't explain international relations. We done that work on the traditionally positive fundamentalist theories within IR. Prohibit a feminist understanding of war that's Stern and Jaworski and 9-1 might argue there. There is a normative feminist failure to construct nations for knowledge, towards structural scholars, not surprising the emancipatory feminism emerges illusory attachment to positivistic understanding of subject's power, uses subjects and effects aroused into agency or illusory foundations for knowledge feminist scholars are conventionally required to produce even however are unattainable.
There's like a flare to it.
Alright, y'all good?
Is that order?
The order is going to be cooperation, hegemony, debris, criticism, and politics.
Cooperation. Where's the debate?
After hegemony.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone good?
Thinking that consistent cooperation impact management rotation results in extinction rates because of an increase in first so unique to signal like SSA means that all of the cooperative ventures and status quo fail because of lack of verification as key to total space conversation through attribution China is interested because they want arms control because they're concerned about US space capabilities out of the hegemony impact. They see that we resolve questions of each nation whereas some other terrorist strategy and nuclear terrorism are two external extinction scenarios results that make repeated pieces of security out of everywhere. Security universities solve counterbalance because that means that countries not want to counterbalance because they have to spend massive amounts of resources. However, they don't want to work with the United States through security guarantees, which means they don't have to spend those resources and they mean they already perceive the United States as benign because they have no intent to go to war with every other country also in the declining wolf. And for distinct special proclaimers in the declining state, in fact, the reliance unrealistic capacity GDP increase in more sense expectation of recession, and the bursting of the carbon labels spending was 25% higher in 2000. The population increased 10%, Democrats or population increased from the aging population 2000 population versus 4.9% of women are supporting competition for high working people versus dependency versus developed economies in China. The as a competition is favorable, so the great recession. The and you can show that the US incline also they make a bunch of arguments about the mere sharp reference how you should rate this argument doesn't take it serious because yes, North Korea and Iran are proliferating the status quo. However, there is a causing mass multiple first and some security communities. Also, the small conflicts are relevant. We prevent small conflicts from de-escalating, such as the Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan. Also, leave our first argument and solves all of their economic arguments because it indicates that as a result of nuclear primacy means we're able to ensure every single other country. So all the economic considerations are relevant. Now, those who agree impact, they consider Russia impact, making impact less on that. The politics but they also see the colonization impact into reach wars that is external to all their impacts because it's not based on the gender international relations, but it's also based on the lack of resources countries have incentive to fight over. Therefore, it's not based on deterrent strategies or perception of other countries. Now, there's no offense to their militarization arguments because militarization nevertheless that's what's best to sustain it and to satiate the military responders goes together. So the case that there's the US majority means that they want to lash against other countries like China, Russia, India, Iran, Pakistan, etc. That means that we are able to resolve the question because we gave them credible deterrent capabilities. Also, no error replication, not your specific scenarios, hegemony, and empirically also more common. Utilize our hierarchy, utilize quantitative and quantitative qualitative analysis, and also utilize empirics as causative. Also, we won't go crazy. There's no sense to do so. There is the case that in hegemony democracy, and the fact that other people would want to say that you should not invent in every other country means that there is lack of support for this. Also, oversearch is a political incentive for military defense to do so for every means when you affirm check multiple quantity frameworks to get flexibility and us access to a message. We see also must make the affirmative credibility because the affirmative is the subset of the resolution needs to understand whether it is already mean the plan is the focus of the debate doesn't the plan is the focus of the debate. We analyze your best starting point gives you the critique alternatives to solve because it sees the political, it sees a lot of parts of other people who when it doesn't make any sense as a political strategy or Kimber evidence in the case that Kenneth Watson, Henry Kissinger would not want to listen about gender hierarchies because they believe it doesn't apply to international relations. This means they instrumentally the alternative. They would not provide any alternative explanation. Therefore, they cannot resolve the question of the bonds are so valid, so life impact new work because one you can see that all life happening also realism is a link argument, realism is a link argument, and also it is alternative substitute coming to and also proves market policy is a good idea because the following way to understand all the country's supposed to fulfill the fact that people have to climb ladders of power means that they're inherently aggressive, inherently masculine, and a result of the electoral cycle that means they cannot access these arguments aside being issued in international relations who are more qualified than all their evidence that means they cannot access any risk of being able to transfer realism because they're not even explained it. Now goes to politics instead you don't solve the relations argument. You have conceded that they're just roots in the status quo as a result of US BMD and Europe that's a unique service calculation impact that have friends. External defensive cooperation zero relations are relevant because nuclear sovereignty always automatically consideration because Russia needs to counterbalance against the United States. That is the only way they're able to maintain survival debris is highly likely to concede our evidence, which is the case that it's unpredictable and evidence from 2 weeks ago, which is the case Space 3 would never let Russian not go to unique debate first is that Obama's political Mr. Mueller, first of all, your evidence doesn't only that it doesn't speak to the GOP, it only speaks to the Democratic opposition. Therefore, the GOP has strong opposition as a result of who should human rights abuses. Also, we see the election cycle argument. They have absolutely no answer to this being told Obama can win by the GOP because Bush is all lip service because the GOP doesn't want to even win in international relations because they believe that we're allowed to win the election because the GOP wants to utilize the political incentive for them to maintain their office. As a result of Obama winning, it probably increases their chance for election, it decreases their chance to be able to maintain any sort of political clout. Also, Gary McGinsky taking off to assume the GOP Democratic opposition is only bogus in your evidence. It doesn't need to pass, it only needs to be conditioned by the GOP. If you're revealed that he said they cannot resolve a question passage. Also, they points are coming out. Actually, no. Obama's not pushing the Jackson Bad orders in Portugal system for the White House. On the front issue chairman, the House workers in the place to make the same sense that Obama was also trying to overcome the resistance in Congress passing the hill. The issue legislation to GV1 passed GOP thinks of peace man, and the emergency force research when the lawmakers are reluctant to pass legislation for use of House code or legibility of Mr. Defense was also called by critics and for Obama. Also, his first one to Obama offers you research to one people with a vote, and Obama's political capital fails Gotsky, and 410 I agree after you also held to discuss back to that constitution happening capital 2 years ago. Obama's really called controversy. Also, you have to consider your argument, which indicates that plan is win as a result of foreign policy. Obama will look like a leader and will increase international credibility inside Congress. Would not want to mess with Obama because he also means that you're messing with the international sphere because the international sphere likes what Obama does. Therefore, when increase political capital is specific, can't let it feature now. The only to make kill so force the plan it assumes you're spending arguments because as a result, he'll be able to make you look like weak on defense. That means that you want to increase the amount of spending because terrorism is a very large issue and that would be political suicide if you look on defense because that's the same strategy. It's perceived as a hedging strategy for U.S. militarism. Also, their evidence is all in the context of NASA, not in the context of space, not in the context of the Department of Defense. Therefore, it's a very low dream threshold. This also proves our no legal argument, which indicates that the DoD is responsible for every single pushing of the SSA because authority is related to the national space strategy. That means there would never be any sort of blame to Obama. All of their evidence is not specific to Obama, or specific to current military defense. Therefore, they cannot access any argument as to why this argument doesn't shield lead.
Almost done.
511.
You good?
On the politics dissent, you can see that Obama's PC is relevant PC. Fails to means that there's no internal link to the dissent. They can corner any offense. Code of cooperation advantage. First of all, this colonization extrapolation is new in the 1 AR, which means you should not allow it. It was just a resource force impacting the 2AC. You should not allow this argument. However, the alternative to the criticism does not preclude us going to space. It is about how we approach how we go to space. Now go to the first of all, masculinized argument makes all of their impacts enough. The affirmative centers in international politics at the state level, feminizing, coordinating other politics. This focuses micropower relations that legitimize and create the masculine dominance to blame the harms of the 1C. The way that the affirmative approaches the international system in politics is one through in which they defend the Kagan evidence. The Kagan evidence specifically links out to that on the link debate below. However, the way that they approach politics, they bad one because we only re-entrench and intervene in different countries because we are obsessed with this masculine ideal of having to entrench in these different nations. Rather, we should take a more gendered approach to politics and shift away from this idea and actually try to cooperate and work with different types of nations. Their argument does not work in the context of certain because the way that they structure their internal links in the 1C is that they need leadership to they need leaderships, and obviously they have U.S. keywords, so obviously they pretty strong leadership argument. That's why the affirmative is key. However, there are two impacts to the criticism, and it turns the entire decay. They go conceded in the 1 AR. First is the unintended outcomes past political events show the propensity for a situation to escalate, telling the Taliban to fight the Soviets makes sense in a realist paradigm, but ignoring the importance these non-state actors hadn't changed in state action on the ground. Occupation needs to sustain U.S. primacy, often lead to sexual violence, motivates many insurgent activities. There are two impacts on this argument. First of all, they lead to internally turning the entire case because they lead to different types of conflict techniques that they lead to the oppression of different types of women because they justify these different types of war, which should be an independent impact in itself. Second, Jordan, you have the time. The second is their reputation, massive framing politics shape. What outcomes we expect based on the traits that we ascribe to other actors in the case of the affirmative. These traits are irrationality, jealousy, and other primitive qualities that lead us to accept the state needs control Bush administration threat toward Iran to prosecute war on terror led to the field of the insurgency and rock making. The problems worse. The argument that you should start on your flows, the positive peace critique rather than one that goes completely conceded by the 1 AR. The Shepherd evidence is pretty specific on this question. It says when you defend peace is the absence of war, that completely leads to all different types of impacts. Now they're going to go for colonization assaults. However, they just extend the same framing outside of the earth, which means that impact applies above. How also I'll explain that more of the alternative. But the impact of positive peace is that we ignore not only structural violence but lead to things like more different types of error replication because we are so focused on stopping different wars that we lead to armament and militarism. We have to take a different approach to how we evaluate peace, and that is only through a lens in which we recognize peace is not the absence of war but the absence of things like structural violence. Now we send the cartoon evidence, it internally turns the entire case in, disproves the thesis of the entirety of the firm. Another argument goes concede a current prediction, terror planning, or hype of defensive analysis to justify constant global military presence, which makes the argument one that you should reject every piece of 1AC evidence because they are written by hyped up analysts, which goes concede. Second is that they recreate the problems of the 1AC. The car argument specifically says when you inframe things to masculine and criticality to you recreating the problems because the intervention arguments that I explained above not go to the frame debate are interpretation that you can leverage the impacts of the firm, which means he does not get any of these offense. He gets the impacts. However, this solves all of his attributes arguments out with any residual fairness claims. However, it's a question of which methodology is better. We should be able to critique the methodology behind the affirmative. We access education better. That's the parallel evidence goes concede methodology shapes policy evaluation. Says that we have to evaluate the different types of policies before we actually evaluate the plan. Now, in the Rockridge Institute of 792 can't separate from our policy implication. Politics is as much about unconscious moral values created to maintain through goods in question how we bring these different types of things. Now, go to link debate. First of all, the link in this debate is twofold. First, the process of making foreign policy relies upon discourse of dangerous design to secure the legitimate masculine crisis control to suppress the defendant. Another looking to save as the primary actor in international relations things violence and inevitable scenes. In another, Kagan evidence says that Russia and China are inspired by jealousy, and the U.S. is viewed to be a stabilizing element in their countries. That is an example of the jealousy arguments that I made above. That's their own line, their own evidence. However, the alternative solves this. They have not read any defense against the alternative besides the feminism can explain error. One is the one I read a pretty good piece of evidence here, as well as the 1C evidence interrogating you through a gendered approach is critical to solve. That's running evidence. It's the best evidence. You should refuse to endorse the mindset of domination violence that characterize masculinity. Interrogating the gender nature of error is a prerequisite to evaluating any case harm gender's major structure of force in politics. So is understanding how achieve reality is a better methodological tool for future policy action to avoid the error of application. The 1AC for evaluation traditional explanation comprehensive are created to prevent absent the alternative structural inequalities exist. Go on. It means we don't know how they come to be in the first place. In the world of the alternative, we can go to space. It's just how we approach going to space. It should not be one in which the United States tries to be a leader. Now, they do not make a permutation, which means there's literally no way that you can vote affirmative in this round. However, because we're ahead on the affirmative debate, don't allow any new two-way arguments. Now, go to the realism debate. This is probably the only place where they would have an ounce of game. However, realism is inevitable, including gender as a category change. So our analysis, sure, countries might act in their own interest. However, if we take a more gendered approach that leads to cooperation, that is a reason that it turns the entirety of criticism. There's not any possibility of conflict because if we take a more gendered approach of politics, the nations won't want to attack us. They've conceded all of the terms-based arguments. Now, he said, see the political argument, the alternative by no means cedes the political. We are a better approach to the political. And that's a new argument. I already explained why that's bad. The 2 is already the hardest speech in debate. Don't make it a hard debate. The 1A the 2A the 1A just concedes the amount of votes.
The order is going to be the kid.
The plan is the focus of the debate. I'll weigh the act first. It's a question of predictability. You can see the 1AR analysis that the hierarchy is cut before your generic gender IR good. The offense predictability, because it's not grounded in the question of the resolution. The resolution is the starting point for all stakes. That's the 1AR claim that the 2NR concedes the alternative should not even enter your decision calculus. Also, they cannot access any of their positive peace offense because the alternative has no way to rectify because it cannot be weighed at the end of the round. Now, they have also conceded the thesis of the guilt-laden evidence. Foucault may rule these 7 Rs, but the alternative has no way to solve the impact of the criticism. Mitt Romney's been saying that he wants to put BMD in space. In the face of that, the alternative will be like, well, that's probably a phallic symbol. However, people will still die as a result of BMD going into space, which means that only the plan is a politically productive strategy. If the alternative does not seem politically productive to you, and if it's not in under the mandates of the resolution, then it cannot enter your decision calculus at the end of this round. Now, hegemony is good. China's coming in the status quo. We need to stop them. The archaic evidence indicates that the only scenario for extinction in this round is a lack of hegemony. You can see the 1-year analysis that Kagan uses quantitative and qualitative analysis when coming to the claim behind for the assumptions behind his claims, which is that all of his methodology and scenario planning offense for white gender does not respond to Kagan's specific war and security guarantees in countries like East Asia and the Middle East, means that those conflicts will not go nuclear. You can see that those conflicts exist in the status quo, which means it's try or die from. We also concede a scenario of terrorism. The plan is able to solve terrorism because terrorists will not mess with a country that has a overwhelming conventional nuclear superiority of them. Even if this seems like a new argument, it's just an intuitive argument. Guess who's not very good for women? The Taliban. The plan is able to solve that. Now, this colonization impact has an internal link that they do not have a link to. It's in the context of resource wars, in the context of getting off the rod to solve extinction. I'm not sure why that links to all of their jealousy, aggressiveness claims. In these status quo, there's a resource crunch. Rational actors will go to war in order to secure those resources because it's the only way they can any sort of legitimacy. The plan is able to solve that by preventing the destruction of the ISS, which is key to space commercialization. It also means the plan that extinction is inevitable to status quo only by getting off the rock can be solved. And now they've considered the Russia extinction scenario. Debris does not link to your gendered to our gendered IR conception of the world. These status quo debris is getting dangerously close to an early warning sound like the only existential risk scenario in this round. They've conceded the impact framework of the debate. The Kaminsky evidence indicates that the only way that we can secure any sort of ethical framework for evaluating impact is if my life doesn't have any less value than Marcel's life. Only util allows us to answer the Cato structural violence claim. Structural violence cannot enter your decision calculus before an act that solves 4 scenarios for extinction. Now go on to the libel, and he says error application. However, there are 2 arguments to this. His point is you have conceded the lash out dissent means that only we control the sequencing on the error application. Decision makers are inherently irrational. Yes, people only go to war if they have a reason to do so. The plan prevents that war. Now he's conceded that benign hegemony exists in these status quo. The plan isn't just going to intervene into every country because that means there will be a lack of credibility for hegemony. The plan is able to, that means that we don't inflate those error application claims. Now he says, now we're to the positive piece, a portion of the debate for 2 things. First is util means that structural violence is not an impact in this round. Second, the resource crunch means that countries would probably starve in the interim if they do not have resources to feed their people. That's also a scenario for structural violence. Even if it's a nuclear material, they have not even contested the claim of resource wars throughout this entire debate. Now, scenario planning is good. The plan's method is a good strategy. You've conceded all the warning are pronouns of how Kagan goes about solving hegemony. If I were in an internal hegemony, I should be able to win this debate. Now, the alternative cannot solve anything. This is a prerequisite to winning any of their arguments about the affirmative being true or a bad idea. The alternative is essentially a counterpoint. If it does nothing to remedy the issues of the affirmative, you should vote out on presumption realism is inevitable. They didn't answer the Mersheimer, the specific Mersheimer arguments. People won't defer to a different epistemic focus, even post the alternative. They support the fog war, the inability to understand other states' military proclivities means that countries will always assume the worst. The alternative is the result of the realist nature of our actors. Also gives us uniqueness for our lash out claim. Now, the pizza point is power status. Every leader is egotistical and masculine. So remember, in order to win elections or become the head of the state or get to the joint system, I have to be competitive and specifically aptitude. This is a structural scenario in the status quo that the alternative cannot rectify. Now, this analysis comes from years of academic study, proves it's ingrained in think tanks, political, social, academia, strategic institutions. The alternatives methodology testing can change the propagation of these ideas. It also gives us a uniqueness for the Gilman dissent to the alternative not being able to solve anything. If you're making a structural claim about how the world operates in the status quo, the alternative is so far removed from that that it's not even